How y'all doing, guys? Brandon here. Welcome back to Retro Dodo. You're watching another episode of our top 10 best list, and this video is all about the best PS1 games. The console was released in '95 here in Europe, and it was my first ever console as a kid, like home console. So the PS1 has a soft spot in my heart, and I'm going to go over the top 10 best PS1 games that you can actually pick up. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. This title is even developed by a company called Oddworld Inhabitants. The whole game is odd from start to finish, but that's why we love it. For those people still wondering what Abe is, he's a Mudokon slave who works at a meat processing plant, so that's why he's got his mouth sewn shut. Abe revolts when he realizes he and his fellow Mudokons are going to be executed, and probably tinned with the rest of the meat. The game follows Abe's attempts to save his persecuted race, freeing as many weird and wonderful beings as he can while travelling through perfectly designed worlds and engaging levels. The design elements in Oddworld Abe's Odyssey are spectacular. It's a perfect 2D platforming experience that simply works, and the detail in the background is just as impressive as what you see in the foreground. Abe, however, is a bit of a wuss when it comes to his own game. You can die so easily, pretty much by anything that touches you. You can throw rocks and jump or sneak past enemies, but if one of them grabs you or you fall from a great height, then you'll return to the last checkpoint. Oddworld might be an odd world, but it's one that defined my PlayStation 1 experience. There are few characters as weird as Abe, and that's why we love him. 9. Gran Turismo 2. Selling close to 10 million copies worldwide, Gran Turismo 2 is one of the most successful games on the PS1 and considered by many to be the daddy of all racing games. Gran Turismo 2 doesn't differ too much to other racing games in terms of mechanics. It's the well thought out tracks, the large array of cars, and addictive gameplay that separates it from other titles in the genre. Players can choose from 27 tracks to play on, and some of these being rally tracks. The best part of this game, however, is the sheer number of cars that you can choose from. There's 650 to choose from. That's just unreal. Gran Turismo 2 had the largest collection of classic cars in any game at the time of release. It was never hard to find a favourite with all of those vehicles to choose from, and it made replaying all of the courses with the different cars super fun too. With such impressive sales records, it's no surprise that Gran Turismo 2 received positive scores of around 9.8 out of 10 across the board. Tournaments, single races, and multiplayer modes made this game a huge success, and it remains one of my favourite racing titles to this day. If that isn't a good enough pitch, then I don't know what is. 8. Spyro the Dragon. Here he is, everyone's favourite dragon. Smaug tried to take the title in the second Hobbit movie, but he's no match for the purple-winged wonder. I think everyone who has ever owned a PlayStation has either bought or played a Spyro game in their time. Like number 6 on our list, he's a quintessential Sony character, and one that is synonymous to the PlayStation brand. Spyro is a 3D platform game with 5 magical worlds. Together with his dragonfly friend Sparks, they must defeat the evil nasty Gnorc and free the trapped dragons throughout the various levels. Spyro was Sony's answer to the family-friendly Nintendo 64, which was known for having games that appealed more to the younger players. The game itself isn't incredibly hard, but it is good fun. Collect treasure, burn bad guys, and ram sheep. The various characters and wise words from the free dragons help to create a spellbinding plot that hooks you in from the very beginning. It's PlayStation's platforming at its finest, and it's usually twinned well with the next one on our list. 7. Crash Bandicoot. He's become a global icon since the first game, with players around the world bearing him on t-shirts, jackets, and even tattooed onto their skin. I reckon you could say "Mbaraka" to any gamer and they'd get that you were talking about Crash's witch doctor mask, Aku Aku. Now that is the mark of a successful game. Crash Bandicoot was a tough game to crack. I remember a level where you had to get past a goat on a bridge that almost made me throw my PlayStation 1 through the window. Players must take Crash through a variety of different levels and worlds. You're ranked by how many boxes you break and how many apples you collect at the end of each level. Crash is another one of Sony's most iconic characters. He's been bouncing on explosives and running away from boulders since the late 90s, and there's no sign of him stopping or slowing down anytime soon. All the enemies and level dynamics in this game are superb. Crash is a brilliant character, and as long as you can keep your cool, will be a great asset to your PS1 collection. 6. Tekken 3. Street Fighter might be one of the most popular names in the fighting genre, but nothing beats the Tekken series. Tekken 3 boasts some of the most memorable characters of all time, including the crazy Yoshimitsu and Eddie Gordo. There were 23 characters to choose from, all in all, giving you multiple ways to battle. It didn't matter whether you were going at it alone or fighting against a friend. It's one of the best PS1 games for blowing off some steam. The game mechanics are similar to every fighting game with the genre. There's a countdown clock, health bars, and special moves that could be pulled out in order to get the upper hand on your opponent. The characters and the attention to detail on the levels are what makes the Tekken series the best in the business. It seems that a lot of people agree, seeing as this game sold over 8 million copies. Ryu doesn't have to be in every fighting game for it to be good. Try your hand at Julia Shang or Brian Fury instead. Once you play Tekken, you'll never be shouting Hadouken again. 5. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. The number 5 spot on our list goes to the most famous skateboarder of all time. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is another one of those games that I reckon we've all had a go at one time or another. For many people, myself included, this was the closest they'd ever get to pulling off a 1080 or cruising down a half pipe. Don't get me wrong, the first Tony Hawk's game was still amazing, but the updated graphics and gameplay in Pro Skater 2 made it my favourite sports game on the console. Every Tony Hawk's game fan will remember how awesome the music was. There was nothing better than cruising around the skate parks and grungy streets while listening to some of the best punk rock anthems ever. Choosing from all of your favourite skaters was always one of the most exciting parts. Watching them on TV and then trying to recreate their famous moves without face planting the floor was tricky, but still, at least it meant you didn't have to get hurt in real life. 4. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Konami know how to make addictive games, and Castlevania Symphony of Night is no exception. The Castlevania series is legendary and spans multiple consoles. It seems that gamers never grow old of killing Dracula and his many relatives, and they never get tired of trying to kill us. Symphony of the Night is part action-adventure platform game, part RPG. Some of you might think that side-scrolling titles deserve to be further back up on the list, but this game is seriously something special. The player must explore Dracula's castle and save the famous Richter Belmont from being possessed. This entry on our list makes Luigi's Mansion look like a walk in a brightly lit park in comparison. You might recognise the famous whip-wielding members of the Belmont clan from other Castlevania titles. In this game, however, you can choose from a variety of weapons and store them in an inventory. Garnering experience points and exploring every creepy nook of the castle are the keys to moving forward in this game. But in true RPG fashion, certain areas will only open up when you have found specific items. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was almost a flop back in the day. It was a slow burner, but once critics got hold of it and began shouting from the rooftops, Konami was saved. It's now one of the most successful selling games on the console and a true classic. 3. Final Fantasy VII. If I had $1 for every minute I spent playing Final Fantasy VII, I'd be a very rich gamer. It's the 7th game in the series and the first to receive a PAL release. You play as Cloud Strife, which is a pretty good name for an eco-terrorist who wants to stop corporations destroying the planet. It's one of the most compelling plotlines in any RPG game to date, and never fails to leave you coming back for more. The game uses 3D characters in a 2D world. Play revolves around the massive world map, the field where most of the exploring happens, and the battle screen where you destroy your enemies. It's very similar to other Japanese RPG mechanics of the time, and PAL gamers went mad for it. As with every Final Fantasy title, the characters, their moves, and the people you interact with are what makes these games so damn addictive. It's so easy to get hooked playing this game. I remember lying to my friends for the entire Easter holidays when I eventually got a copy because I didn't want to leave the TV. I was obsessed. 2. Vagrant Story. The fictional kingdom of Valendia was and still is one of the greatest places in gaming history. Squaring off against huge dragons while trying to take down evil organizations, Vagrant Story has it all and more. It's an action-adventure RPG, but there isn't any trading of armor or speaking with every character to find a specific clue. The game concentrates on creating and modifying gnarly weapons, as well as using your brain to solve difficult puzzles and finding strategic ways out of sticky situations. You play as Ashley Riot, which is easily one of the coolest names ever. You're an agent referred to as a risk breaker, and you're used to diving headfirst into dangerous situations. Vagrant Story has a ton of cool features, like the grimoires that you have to find to learn magic spells, and everything from the combat mechanics right through to the original score for the game is wholly epic. Critics went mad for this game. It sold 100,000 copies in the first 20 days and is the only PlayStation game to ever receive 40 out of 40 from Famitsu magazine. If that doesn't prove how good this title is, then I don't know what will. Number 1. Metal Gear Solid. For those of you that have been wondering when Metal Gear Solid would finally arrive, here it is. Metal Gear Solid is without a shadow of a doubt the worthy winner of the top spot in our best PlayStation 1 games list. Despite being another stealth game that I was initially terrible at, I knew that this game was worth persevering with. It's an absolute classic, perfect from the moment you switch on your machine to the end credits. Solid Snake, the game's protagonist, is still one of the coolest characters to date. I reckon he could even give Lara Croft a run for her money. So what makes Metal Gear Solid so special? Well, apart from Solid Snake having a cool name, a cool look, and a badass set of skills, it's full of organizations with names like Foxhound and DARPA. It made me feel like a real-life super spy that's even more dangerous than skateboarding down a half-pipe. Stealth is the aim of the game in Metal Gear Solid. Solid Snake can be detected when he moves into an enemy's line of vision, so the player has to duck, crawl, and sneak their way to victory. You can always shoot bad guys too, but don't risk alerting other guards to your presence. This game is 3D, but it is often viewed from a top-down perspective. The camera angle changes in moments of combat, however, giving you the best view of the action no matter what's going on. Honestly, if you haven't played this game, then you owe it to yourself to give it a try. It's a masterpiece, and we can't give it any higher praise. So there you have it, a little look at the top 10 best PS1 games of all time. Now, this is a personal preference list. This is not ranked or official in any way. This is just my top 10 best PS1 games that you can get hold of. If you think I'm missing one, put them in the comment section below. Like Rayman and Croc should have been in there in all honesty, but you know, they just scraped the list by a few rankings. So there you have it. If you want to see more best lists, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification system, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.